Hi, and welcome to the VFX Artist Podcast. This episode is split into two parts. This is part 2 of 2. On today's episode, I have Michael Morgan, a senior animator with over 20 years of experience in the VFX industry. During today's discussion, I find out more about how Michael got into the industry, as well as discuss his experiences leading and supervising teams. We also go on to discuss what qualities he looks for in animators and discuss the common practices and mistakes animators do and more. I hope you enjoy the show. So 20 years in the game, and then like you were just saying, you sometimes you I don't know how to put it. Would you say that you still suffer imposter syndrome sometimes? And if so,
yeah, definitely.
Is it just the stress that triggers it, or is it what triggers?
I think what triggers it is, for me, is I like to take on new challenges. Like I literally, because when I look at the work that I do, I don't do the same thing again and again and again. I deliberately, I don't know if I'm a sabotage guy kind of person, but I deliberately want to push myself. I'm never satisfied by doing the same thing and then go, okay, like, how can I explain? If I'm doing character stuff, I want to then do like big monsters, so I would go from something like, I did a show called Peterson and Findus, which to me is very similar to Pinocchio now. So it's a character-based kind of show. But I don't want to, I'm not satisfied just doing character performance. I like action. So, and then I not just like an action, but I do like the big mech, and the kaijus. It's because I have so many enjoyments in different areas, it makes it like I'm a kid in a candy store. I want to do it all, basically. Yeah, and sure. Because of that, the skills and the discipline that you need to have for doing big kaijus, getting the weight and the timing and all that, feeling of, say, Godzilla or King Kong or something like that, to feel right. And then now I'm doing Pinocchio with Jiminy. So you got Godzilla up there or King Kong up there, and you got Jiminy Cricket like this. You can't throw the same principles at it, or should I say, the same timing, because you got to get someone who feels tiny to feel small and, is moving a lot more nimble, got more life. And then you got this big kaiju that's moving around lumbersome. So it's got to feel different. And then, I was working on Mowgli. You got quadrupeds. That's a whole different ball game as well. You got video reference. You got to be very true to that. And so if you're moving around from quadrupeds, you got your kaijus, you got your little characters, and then you got your cartoony characters as well, which are more exaggerated and more very snappy timing. As an animator, going from one to the next, your brain has to go, whereas if I did kaiju, mm-hmm. I would be a kaiju expert. Do you know what I mean? I would know how to do all the heavy creatures. But if you then told me to do a little tiny character, I would lose my mind, and I probably would just have a fit and drop. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I'm always trying to change it up while I'm going along. Sure. And that change up has a little bit of a kick where you've got to realize that's not what I did on my last project. So I can't now do exactly what I was getting used to, that formula that I was used to. Now I'm on a new project that's very different and demanding. I've got to restart and change the way I'm doing things again. Does that make any sense?
It does.
Yeah. And I think I throw myself in that all the time. Like going from Spider-Man to Pinocchio, they're very different shows. Mm-hmm. But most people try to stay on very similar shows. And if you get recruiters or people like that, they will go, we want to hire someone who's done this show. And then everything they do was just the same. Like, for instance, back in 2002, I had just finished a tennis game. Mm-hmm. And the studio was made everyone redundant. But then I was getting called by all these other companies that were doing tennis games. And they were like, you've just done a tennis game and all this. It's your career, but I recommend you do a tennis game again. And I'm like, you know what? Nah, I'm not trying to do another tennis game. And some of them would turn around and go, you're making a big mistake, you know, trying to do something different. You've done a tennis game. You spent 2 years on a tennis game, and now you're going to turn your back on it and try and do something else. That's your loss. And you start to realize, because you've done something, people expect you to just keep doing the same thing. But for me, I'm very much, like I said to you before, it's animation before anything else, or it's story, it's character, creature, and all that. It's all in the mix. But I like I said, I like big, massive creatures, and I like small things. I like action, I like performance. So I throw myself into all of it. And that's the imposter syndrome, is because I can't rely on a set formula to make it happen.
Yeah, sure.
I've got to go back to what is sincere about that character. And that's the hardest thing. It's like, can I do the same trick on Spider-Man that I do on Pinocchio? It won't work. Do you see what I mean? Whereas I did Venom and Spider-Man, even that didn't work. You know, like the stuff that I was doing on Venom, the director would turn around, he's not Spider-Man. He's heavier, he's this, he's that. So something that you might think is the same is actually, even that in its sense, is very different. Okay.
Yeah. Because we always have to challenge ourselves and learn new tricks. So I get, that's what you're trying to do, to always improve and always learn new things, which is necessary for I think everyone should be doing, I guess.
Yeah, it's not what most careers ask of you, basically, because you know, if I stuck to a specific, like if you look at a lot of people's demo reel, you will see how if you worked on Paddington, you're ideal to work on like Rocket Raccoon, Peter Rabbit. You know, like there's a flow. People expect that because you've done this character, we know exactly where your path can go, and we'll hire you for those projects. But, you know, so say I work on kaijus, then I'm always going to be the heavy character guy. I work on cartoony stuff, then I'm always going to be, say, the Hotel Transylvania, Cloudy Chance. You know, there is a knowledge that if I hire this person, they're going to be consistent because they've always done it. And I'm trying to be someone who's not that, not because I'm trying to actively go against the grain. It's just because I have different influences. I like, you know, like you can see, I like Spider-Man, Batman and all this stuff, but I like it in the cartoony form as well as the realistic. So like I mentioned, Spider-Verse is very different style of animation to a live action film. So just because I like both of them, do I have time to learn the different styles? Like, you know, if you go into something like Spider-Verse, you have to learn a totally different way of animating than a live action. And that's what these projects think when they hire you is, can this guy or girl, can this kid basically hit the ground running? You know, do we have enough time to train them? Because it's a scary thing to be able to, you can imagine people that went off in Shrek and then went on to Madagascar, you know, such different styles of animation. But because they worked within that studio, DreamWorks probably would allow you to go, all right, we know you did your Shrek style, which is quite naturalistic. Now you got to do this zany, very pose-to-pose animation. That just, your head just starts to trip. But if you can pull it off, you're better off for it, because you're someone who's now going, I understand animation, I've got to play with my timing, I've got to exaggerate poses, I've got to do this. And that's something that you bring back, and you start to appreciate that it's not, you haven't just gone into a sleepwalking mode where I am doing exactly what I did on my last project. And some people like that, some people don't. I'm one of those people that's always trying to switch it up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So what are the common mistakes that animators tend to make, especially graduates or juniors, and I guess any mid level artists?
Yeah, I guess common mistakes. I don't know. For me, I think a lot of people try to do too much, in their shots, or they overwhelm themselves because they're trying to convince themselves, to convince whoever's on the show that what they're doing is amazing. And what do I mean by that? It's they kind of burn themselves out. Like they add too much to a shot, and it just becomes more headache than it needs to be. So It's like there is a way of doing something the most simple and effective way, or there is trying to do it kind of like a Jim Carrey. I'm going to get everything in this shot, and everyone's going to look at it. They're going to laugh at my shot. They're going to think it's the best thing ever. Well, not every shot demands that. Sometimes it's just a quiet moment. And I feel like sometimes we don't know how to do the quiet moments. It might be a button pressing. You know what? I'm going to make it do the anticipation like this. And then it's like, let the shot be what the shot needs to be, and look at it in context. Because that's what I feel like sometimes we make the mistake of, we might think, oh, this shot looks so boring. It's not good enough. I need to jazz it up to the point of it now takes over. But if you look at it where it stands, then you respect what it's doing in the film, what it's there for. And I think a lot of the time we can forget that, because we start to think, I'm an animator. I'm going to make this the best thing ever. And everyone's going to not care about that shot and that shot. They care about only mine. And also what I think a lot of us do as animators is, a mistake is, we just think about the demo reel.
Right.
You've watched demo reels, and demo reels are amazing. Like, you watch someone's demo reel and everyone falls in love with that person, and it's like, oh my gosh, you worked on my favorite part in the show. The truth is, we don't all get told what part of the show we're going to work on. It's like, that's kind of like a roulette thing. So we shouldn't be so in awe about, oh my gosh, if I get on that part of the show, my life is everything. It's what if you're on the show, it's enabling you to animate and have fun with it. The main thing, you want to have fun, but don't get so caught up that you're looking at your shots and thinking they're not cool enough. This is not demo reel material. Yeah. And I think a lot of us, especially because I came from video games, did TV, and then 10 years later I went into film, I started to realize film has a lot of prima donnas, a lot of divas, where they're like, oh, it's not good enough. And I'm like, wow, you don't have that so much in games, because in games, you're doing this and it's on a 360 scale, and it's going to be in the game regardless, and it's as important, like a run cycle, is as important as shooting and whatever. Everything that you do in a game has equal importance, okay? Whereas people in film, they're like, oh, I'm on the best part of the show, and so you see that kind of thing happening. I'm not saying it's, people's fault, but then you see the egos, and that's what I'm trying to say. The mistakes are, you're starting to build an ego because you're looking at, what's my demo reel going to be like? Does my shot look the best? Like, am I getting the better shots? So you start poo-pooing all the stuff that needs to be done in order to make sure you have a demo reel that you can show off, and people can look at you and you can then go, yes, that's me. I am the one who did those shots. So in a roundabout way, I'm always going off and off, but I would definitely say is checking ego at the gate and understanding that we're here to make a project and enjoy making it and not worry about our demo reel would be the first thing going in.
Yeah.
So I say that, but at the same time, you want to own your shot. Okay, you don't want to just be, oh yeah, I'll get it and I'll just get it through the production line. No, you want to own it. You want to make sure that it does sing, but everyone's shot singing with it. It's not trying to outshine anyone else's. It's just trying to make this work as a collective. Okay, so sometimes what I say, it can be seen as you're just trying to service something and you're on a production line, but it's more about you're working with the team and you're knowing that if we're working on the left and the right, we're bringing it all together and we're helping each other. So trying to just care about your one shot and not thinking about what this person doing and what that person doing is a mistake. You want to bring it all together and go, oh my gosh, I like what you did on your shot there. I'm going to take a little bit influence off that and a little bit off there, and I'm going to bring it, and mine's going to sing just as well.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. As a 3D animator, what transferable skills or knowledge can be passed on to a 2D animator or a stop motion animator, and how easy or difficult would it be to transit into either of those departments?
Yeah. Animation, sometimes I say animation and animation, as long as you've got those principles. Now it's obviously it's the execution of that that's the difference. Like I was at Ardman doing one of their training courses, teaching on that, and I was teaching the 3D side, and I would go in every day talking to the head of animation because he was doing all the stop motion stuff, and I tell you, I've got nothing but respect for stop motion. Like that is probably the ultimate patience that you can have as an animator. And if you had stop motion level knowledge and transferred that to 3D and 2D, I think you'd be the ultimate animator, because what they do in stop motion, they're thinking like 5 steps ahead. They know where they want to go with that. Whereas I think 3D, we have it a lot easier than 2D, because 2D, you got to draw it, you got to go through that. So you have to have another skill, which is your 2D traditional draftsmanship has to be good. Whereas CG, I could teach my mom, as long as she knows how to plot some keys and probably do some poses, she can get some animation. Whereas 2D, unless you can draw, your animation is going to look a bit. And unless you understand animation and how it flows, your stop motion is not going to work. So what I'm trying to say is those skills would be something that 3D animators, if they knew from those areas, would improve their 3D. Understanding posing and timing are probably the 2 things you need. But taking that and having appealing poses, understanding weights and stuff like that, and learning that from a 2D perspective, bringing that to 3D would increase your game so much. So what I'm basically trying to say is every area, different styles of animation, you can take what's strong about those, bring it to 3D, and it will improve your animation so much more. You don't have to be a great draftsman to do 3D, but understanding anatomy, understanding mechanics, understanding where the weight shifts goes and how the body, if you tilt in this and that, gives you more appeal, then you'll see the difference in your animation compared to someone who's just very much rigid, doesn't have any curves, doesn't have any flow. It changes the game so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Yeah. What advice would you give to anyone putting together an animation showreel, and what do you expect to see or not see?
Yeah, I would say it's always looking where you want to take your career as an animator. Do you want to even work in video games? Do you want to work in films or commercials or is it VR? So where is it that you're trying to push yourself? And basically push for that. So if your thing is Toy Story and you love Toy Story and everything about it is that where you want to go, then go with that. Focus on bringing that in your portfolio, showing that in your portfolio. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to make a Toy Story, but it's taking elements of it. What was it about Toy Story that excited you? The same with, like, I really like, say, Batman Beyond. Why do I like it? It's dynamic. So I like dynamic poses, Spider-Man. I like that kind of thing. So that's what I would push in my portfolio. So that's what I would say. But like I said, I have quite a diverse variety in what I like. And if that's what you have as well, show that. Make sure your portfolio shows who you are. Like 20 years ago, my portfolio, it's a signature of me. I would say very much now, if I look at my demo reel now, it's a signature of what I like, if that makes sense. The kind of shows that I got onto, I pushed to go onto them because, I really love Pacific Rim, the first one. So when I found out they were making a second one, I contacted who was making it, and I was talking to them to try and get onto that project. And it's because of that, when Black Panther was coming out, fortunately it was the same studio, but I was talking to them going, requesting to go on that show. So it's all about, once you're in there, you're doing your requesting, but before you get in there, they already get a sense of who you are and what you like because you've shown that in your portfolio. Mm-hmm. So if you like a lot of acting and that's what you're all about, show those sincere, sentimental moments. You're quiet acting, or you're loud, you're Jim Carrey, or are you more of a introvert and people can just see the subtext, they can just see in the eyes what you're portraying and the emotional beats. So I would definitely say your portfolio is your casting, it's your audition, it's your point of showing what you're about. So it's one of those things of, are you doing it for yourself and letting everyone else, when they see it, they see you? Or are you doing it to try and service a company? Like, I know what this company does, so I'm trying to do it for that company. Mm-hmm. Me, I'm more about, this is what I enjoy. And then I look and see who's doing that. Because if you look at the way I work is, I'm never with one company for a long time. I'm a lot of the time, especially when I got into film, I didn't know this was the way, but visual effects, it's project to project. Like, I get hired based on a project. So I get hired for that project. So I know that they have to know what I'm like as an animator. So I can't be, I want to work with this studio, because it's more about project-based employment. So they have to see, yep, he does this style of animation, we'll hire him for that. So if I only do one style of animation, I'll get hired for those kind of projects. If I do multiple styles, then I have more opportunities. So but then you have to also be careful, because doing multiple styles means a lot more time needs to show that, one, you're strong at doing the Marvel style projects, which is the Spider-Mans and the Black Panthers, and you're equally as strong in your character performance, and you're equally as strong in your big giant creatures. So you've got to build all of those skills to the same level, because there's someone who's doing just dinosaurs and they are perfect at dinosaurs. So every dinosaur show, they get called for it, and they will always be called for it. And you've got to say, is that what you want? To be the dinosaur king, the quadruped king, or the cartoon? Do you know what I mean? So that's your portfolio has to reflect what you want as an artist.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. Are you in the position of knowledge to recommend any good universities or courses or avenues for anyone looking to learn or improve the animation skills?
So I would say, look at, university-wise, I'm not up to speed with which courses are doing what now. I do go to a lot of unis. This is what I started doing when I got back to the UK, 2011. I started going to unis because I did start seeing that universities were struggling with, people coming out of unis and they were struggling with the skill set and the quality of work. So I just wanted to see how unis were teaching people. And I do feel that, back in the days, it was always about Bournemouth, it was a place where, in the UK anyway, that they had the skills, they had the knowledge, because a lot of those guys from Bournemouth went on to work in the US and worked on the original Jurassic Park. So you would see that because that was the past and that was a path that people were doing, everyone would go there. But there's a lot more now. There's a lot more opportunities, from Ireland to the UK. There's obviously some good and there's some bad. And it's knowing which ones are the good and the bad. I can't tell you off the bat because I haven't been and I haven't checked them all out. But then you have your online schools. Now, a lot of people think, jump onto your online school straight away. But this is also a mistake if you haven't done your prep work. Because I work and I studied at Animation Mentor. Now, I know I was doing 5 years in the industry, obviously studying as well before I went to Animation Mentor. And I benefited from that because then I went on to doing Clone Wars and stuff with Lucasfilm, blah, blah, blah. But that wouldn't have happened if I was like 16 years old, never touched Maya, jumped onto an online course, and boom, this shit's hard. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you got to also think to yourself, these online courses, and you see in their demo reels, they are the best of the best. They're not showing you the students that are struggling. They're showing you the students that have really grown and really showing some amazing work. Because you got to think about everything that we see online now. We're seeing just the best.
Yeah.
We're seeing the Michael Jordans and Allen Iversons, the LeBron James, Beyonce's, Michael Jackson, all these names. You don't see the rubbish. And you don't see their rubbish either. You only see their top quality. So we have to be careful that we think this guy's demo reel, this person's schooled and all this. But before you go there, do your preparation, do your due diligence, and do all of that before. Because once you go to those schools, you've got to ask yourself, are they going to help me? Does this curriculum, like this 12 weeks that I'm going to have at this school, help me learn all the knowledge that I need to be a strong animator? And chances are you cannot be a strong animator. Like, you can't be a Glenn Keane in 12 weeks. But a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, this, I saw this amazing animation and I'm going to go and join this school. I've never done animation in my life, but in 12 weeks, I'm going to be the best animator that ever lived. And that's where it's up to the individual to start going. It takes about 3 years. That's not something you want to hear, but it takes about 3 years to be competent. Do you know what I mean? Okay. So I would say, think about, what am I going to do for these 3 years that's going to allow me to just hone my skills and get a strong foundation? Because I promise you, if you try and jump and think you can get over the hurdles in a couple of weeks, you're just going to feel defeated, because there's time that it takes. You can't cook certain foods quicker than they allow you to cook them. And that's just the way life is. Do you know what I mean? Bamboo takes, 5 years before it sprouts. And that's just life. Because all of that stuff that's happening underneath needs to happen. Those foundations need to grow. So I would definitely say, if you're looking at animation, you've never done it before, never started it, look and start talking to those schools, online, brick and mortar, whatever, that allow you to really do a deep dive. This surface stuff, it's more about going onto the surface stuff once you understand the foundations. There are a lot of courses out there, but not all of them are of quality,
Sure, yeah.
And I'm not, because I teach with a lot of schools, and the ones that I teach with, I definitely feel that are quality schools. Okay, that's why I want to get involved with them. But you have to be at a different level. You can't just come in off the, out the gate and just go to these higher up schools, because, and when I say higher up, I'm talking about schools that have a short time frame, and you've got to produce a lot of work. Because there are some people that, I've signed up to this school and I'm going to be amazing, but they don't put in the work. It's like you need 25 hours in your week to put in and get good, But I can only put in 2 hours. Well, if you're going to put 2 hours in the week, you're not going to be amazing. There's no way you can get to a high quality if they're not putting in the work. And there's a lot of people that do that for some strange reason. They think, I'll sign up to this, I'll sign up to this, I'll sign up to that. And they just do the bare minimum, and you get the bare minimum in return. Yeah. So I know that's a little bit like preaching there, but it's like, that's what people, they really need to know, that if you're going to sign up to something, put in the work, or else it's not going to become favorable.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So what's been a memorable highlight of your career so far?
So for me, memorable highlight career, there's a lot of things. I guess for me, something that's big, I guess it was a big turning point in my career, is going to Singapore. Like Singapore, for good or for bad, made me become this traveler, like addicted to traveling. Like, I never thought I'd ever, you're growing up, and I'm not really one who cared to go anywhere, but I was always thinking, I like Hollywood, so I'm going to go to the States. But I ended up going to Asia, and going to Singapore opened my eyes to a lot of things. One, different culture, but also just, it was Lucasfilm doing something that was different. They were doing a Clone Wars animated TV series that wasn't tried and tested. You can turn around and say, well, it's Star Wars. They couldn't go wrong. There's a lot of Star Wars recently that's gone wrong. So, you can't say that. I stopped watching Star Wars at The Force Awakens. I haven't watched the last two. But I do enjoy the Clone Wars. I like the 2D one, amazing. Gendy Tartakovsky. I thought, wow, the 3D is going to have a hard time trying to emulate that, which it's not the same beast. But that's what I'm saying. That was a turning point to me. It was going to a different country that I've never been to, working on a project that, if you looked online, people were scared because they were thinking it's not being done by the US branch. It's been done in Asia. Are they going to really give it what it needs? It turned out to be a big hit. But what I liked about it was it was taking a chance, going on something that was just new, exploring new territories. So that's how I do a lot of things, exploring new territories. And so that was a big turning point. Another career, I guess, going to New Zealand, going to Weta, and I worked on Guardians too. And I actually went there because I wanted to work on Apes 3. I didn't even know Guardians 2 was being made there. But when I worked on it, it's all keyframe animation. It's doing your reference, really getting to grips with Rocket and Groot. I worked on the first one, so it was great to work on the second one again. And then once I worked on Apes, what opened my eyes to was the whole motion capture thing that you mentioned earlier. Having that freedom with the reference and everything with Rocket and Groot, and then being very tight with the mocap on Apes, I was like, I'm so glad I got to work on Rocket and Groot, because it showed me I didn't like mocap as much. It showed me that this tight, really being quite rigid and not able to be flexible with the mocap was something that I didn't care for. But on the flip side, if you're doing your action sequences, you had free reign. So it was dependent on the shot. You know, this quiet moment was very mocap heavy. You couldn't really do much, you know, maybe the facial, but you can't do much to the body. So it let me see things like that, because before I thought mocap was, like I said, you work with it in a specific way. But then when you see these amazing shots that are mocap heavy, there's a lot that goes on before the animator. So it showed me that. So you got to kind of know a lot of this behind the scenes, because once you go there and you do stuff, you're like, oh, this isn't what I expected. I thought as an animator I would have more freedom. And then, so it's different things like that. And New Zealand, I say that because, well, my daughter was born in New Zealand. And yeah, that was an experience that was insane, because we went to the hospital, partner was due, and I had to basically deliver my child myself at the hospital. So that's one of the things that I won't forget anytime soon. So I always have to check that the child's not crazy, you know, make sure that she was delivered right. But yeah.
Wow. So as a family man, then how do you manage being traveling around for work as often as you do? Do you take your family with you sometimes, or how do you arrange that with the family if you have to leave them behind and whatnot?
Yeah, that is a hard one, because I try to bring them with me as often as possible, you know, especially when they're going to school. You got to think to yourself,
right,
what's the right time? What's the right age? When I went to Montreal, because my daughter, so I've got a son that's at uni age, so he's already like, yeah, I'm out. So he's doing his thing, so that's all right. But then you've got children that are in school age. Everyone's different. You know, for me, I just think, because growing up, I was going from one school to the next. So that's kind of probably why I'm very much, if an opportunity comes up in Canada, I'll go with it. If there's an opportunity in New Zealand, I'll go with it, because I think to myself, the first 7 years of a child's life is, you know, obviously it's important, but they're also quite flexible in the way they go into this school. I'm kind of contradictory. Like, partner would say they need more stability, but I'm also saying at the same time, this is where we can still say in the first few years, they're going to nursery, we can bring them abroad, you know, we can do this. They don't need to be in a set place. One as well, when they're free, they don't remember anything after the age of, before the age of 4. So you can kind of just get them and flow them here, flow them there. So, you know, like your little one there, you know, it's like you can, there's a little bit more flexibility, basically. That's my take on it. So, but I always try and bring them with me. Definitely. That's the main thing, because at least they will have somewhere that they've experienced, whether they remember it or not, but they've experienced. And it's a big part of growing up, that they know there's more to life than where they were just born, you know.
Of course,
So, and then it's later on in their life, if they want to continue traveling, they can do that, knowing that they had that in the beginning. So, and also because, hey, I know in my career path, if I stayed in the UK and just went to London, you know, trying to get in those studios, my career wouldn't grow as I don't know if I would say as fast or as as open, because going to Canada, going to Montreal helped me grow, because I took what I knew from London, brought that knowledge to somewhere that wanted that knowledge, and they would embrace it and go, all right, then this guy actually knows something. Let's listen to what he's got to say. Let's embrace, let's do and incorporate what he's bringing to the table. Whereas if I'm in London, I'm just another guy trying to do what all these Londoners are doing. And they look at you and go, yeah, well, okay, but we already know what we know. So you kind of don't get that opportunity. So what I'm basically saying there is, when you go abroad, you can bring that knowledge to people that kind of appreciate it a bit more. And then that builds you up. And then you then become a person who's seeing how strong and how influential you can be, because you know your knowledge has something to offer. And even when you go back, like when I go back to London, I've now got this ability to work with people abroad and have that. When I'm back in the UK, I don't just say, okay, we're based in London, we only care about what London's doing. It's a global field now. So I know how people in Montreal, Vancouver, it's like, I understand that flow. People in Asia, it just connects you more, basically. And then the opportunity for the family to go, like my family went to Singapore, they've been to New Zealand, you know, Canada. And that's because I'm able to bring them there. And it just opens them up to so many different things. Like if I had that when I was a child, I would have loved it, you know. So they might be spoiled, you know, now that they get to do these things, but at least we have in this industry the ability to bring our families with us, even if people might say, but it's not for a long time. So for example, if I go to another country for only 6 months, how are you going to do with your house back in the UK? If you don't own a house, then that becomes hard things, you know. But if you own property, or if you're able to rent out your property in the meantime, or you got family members that can hold on to what you know, if you can hold on to what you have in the UK while you do your 6 months abroad, you're not too afraid, because you know you're going back and you've got somewhere to go back to. But when we went to Montreal, we just packed it all up. We were like, we're going to Montreal. And a year into it was like, I'm not sure about this. But we don't have a house back in the UK. What we're going to do? You know, it's like tail between your legs if you go back. But we went, you know, bypassed to New Zealand. So we had a year and, you know, nearly 2 years out of the UK. Come back. Families there to support us, you know, so then we can get back on our feet and do what we need to do. But it does take a lot, because you have to think to yourself, are we really going to upstick everything for your career? Which is very, you know, my career is like 6 months here, 12 months there. Is it really going to be a permanent job? But I take gambles, I take risks. So, and for some reason they've worked out quite well. So maybe I'm not the best person to take advice from.
No, I like that. I mean, I think, I mean, I love like traveling and I love exploring, and it's something that I'd like for my son, or two of my sons and my wife to experience, because I value those things, like being able to, for people to gain experience, like, and learn new things and meet new people and broaden their mind and their understanding and appreciate new things. So I can relate, can understand.
Cool.
So, so what are you aspiring for in the next few years?
Me, I'm aspiring for, I kind of just want to enjoy life, basically, especially with these last 2 years of being madness. So it's the aspiring, it always comes down to, am I enjoying what I'm doing? You know, I don't want to burn myself out and just think I gotta work. I just really, you know, like yourself, you know, when you got your children, you want them to see, like, especially if they've run in this room or whatever, it's they know that, all right, their dad works a lot, but he enjoys what he's doing, and he's able to bring them where he goes, or he's able to be in their life, like when work stops and it's the weekend or whatever, or it's the evenings, spending time with them. That's something that I'm trying to find, that balance, because working is not the way to always be. It's you got to find that balance, and I'm aspiring to have a good life, enjoying what I'm doing, as in animation wise, but also just enjoying being around people that are inspiring and get what you're doing as well. Like I said, these last 2 years, you've seen a lot of dividing in people, where people are just losing their mind over stuff that doesn't even matter. It's letting you see that life is more important than a lot of foolishness, and respecting other people's wishes, and respecting how people are living their life is more important than trying to follow a certain narrative. Or if the government says this, everyone rushes and follows it, and then all of a sudden the government says this and they rush that way, and they get angry because they're following stuff that is not what they want to do. It's stuff that they think if we follow it, it will get us where we need to get, and then it doesn't, and then everyone's angry. So I just think to myself, this has opened up a lot of things where you wake up and go, life is, you look at your mortality and you go, what do I want from life? And that's what I think about. I want to enjoy it. And so, even like last year I went to Vancouver, and I think to myself, a lot of people say, how could you fly during a pandemic? Now I just think to myself, look, I sound weird sometimes, but I just think, when I gotta go, I gotta go. Do you know what I mean? It's like, when my time's up, my time's up. So while my time's not up yet, let me enjoy life and be responsible, do what I need to do, but let me enjoy that. Because if the opportunity's around and it's able, and it's actually not hurting anybody, it's actually a good thing, then I will take it up. If it's something that's madness, then I'll have to gauge what the level of madness is. But for me, it's a case of looking at situations, weighing it up, and going, is this going to be something that I'm going to feel is beneficial, or is it just, because at the end of the day, everything's about ego. I say not to have an ego, but doing a lot of this stuff I do it because I want to do it. I'm so excited to do it. So that's a part of my ego saying, if you do that, you'll enjoy that. It's this, and this. I could equally have just stayed in my house all of last year and been on projects that were still good. You're still making money. So why would you take the chance to go to another country in a crazy time? And it's basically because, I've been talking to Sony for like 10 years. The opportunity came. It was on a project that I was excited to do. So I went onto that project, and it opened up an opportunity and an ability for me that was more than if I just stayed. Whereas at the same time, I could have just stayed and not gone. So it's like, you just weigh up these things and just think to yourself, what kind of life do you want?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like it's cool. So I know Daniel, and I heard you've been working with him on Broken Toy, his upcoming short film. You're just wondering how that experience has been.
Yeah, that's good. So I was working with him before I flew out to Vancouver. So when that starts to pick back up, I'll definitely be able to help out, and also introduce some animators to this, the project as well. Because that's another thing with me. When I work on projects, I can then see, whether I'm working with a school or working, tutoring people, I can see if they're not able to get straight onto a studio, they can get on a project like what Daniel's doing, where they can help out and get an understanding of what it's like to collaborate. So those are things what I feel like when people are doing short films and we're bringing in talent that hasn't been getting the exposure that they want or need, they're still able to do that through like Broken Toy, where working with someone like Dan, they can get someone who's industry, being a director, who's working in the industry for so long, he can then talk to the studios that he's working and go, I know someone who's of this quality, blah, blah, blah. And it shows in the work as well. Because once the short film comes out, people see this and they want to see the talent that's worked behind it. Yeah. And that helps them as well. So it's always, it doesn't have to be a studio. It can be a short film, and that whole ecosystem helps them get into a bigger, platform again.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's true. Cool. Yeah. So where can people find out more about you and your work?
That's a good question. So for me, like I said, I do a lot of school, tutoring and stuff like that with schools. But the main thing is I'm not actually that big online. I kind of like try and duck and dive. I do a few posts here or there on animation on LinkedIn, but that's just some random, talks and thoughts there. So I would say, mainly LinkedIn, my stuff that's on Vimeo, but that's just the odd stuff with the demo reel. But yeah, I used to have a website, but not now. I took that down quite a while back.
Okay.
But yeah. So that's my badly advertising there.
No, that's understandable. But thank you so much for your time. I've learned a lot, and I think what you've talked about, what you've shared with us, will be very helpful for anyone aspiring to do what you do or currently doing what you're doing. I think it feels like you're always the kind of person that likes to give back and share your journey and your ideas and advice. So I think thank you so much for your time and for sharing.
All right, you're welcome. It's good speaking with you, Kofi.
You too. Yeah, you too.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Have a good day. I'll talk to you soon.
You too.